So ego is not who you are. It's a fictional sense of self that we create and we inhabit it, but it's not who we are. It would be like you're in a stage play and you're playing a role, King Lear or something. You are not, as an actor, literally King Lear. You, as an actor, are embodying King Lear. And King Lear is a fictional story, it's a fictional character. And there's nothing wrong with that as long as you're aware that King Lear isn't who you are. So, our sense of self, the social sense of self, I just call it self, or if I use the term the person, I usually mean that as a self that includes the body. So the person is like the whole person. The self is the psychological sense of self. Sometimes in psychology, it's referred to as ego. The way I use it in this purely transcendent context is it's a social or it's a fictional sense of self. It's no more real than a character you're playing in a stage play. So if you believe that you're King Lear, that's a problem. It's a mental disorder. If you know that you're not King Lear, if you know who you are, in other words, you're an actor and you're portraying this character, that's not a problem at all. And you can actually really give yourself to it and inhabit it quite fully without losing yourself in it. The problem is we're lost in thinking, really. The self is created by thinking and sense experience. So we have thoughts and then we have our perception, the five senses. Who we really are is pure consciousness. We are the light of consciousness that illuminates the mind and the body. We are not the mind or the body, we are inhabiting it. So our true nature is pure consciousness, and it's like a light, and it's illuminating the mind and the body. If I hold my hand up, the light is illuminating it, but the hand is separate from the light. The light shows it to me. As consciousness, we illuminate ourselves. So my awareness illuminates my mind and body. But I am the awareness, and the mind and body are, in a sense, arising within me or being shown to me that are not me. The character of King Lear is like a script that's written. So it's something you can write down on a piece of paper. So King Lear exists in a script written by William Shakespeare, and it's purely conceptual. If I'm acting in a play, I might have the robes and the crown and all the regalia that a king would have. That's in a way that's sort of like a body, it's a physical thing. And if we get confused and think that we're King Lear, that is a problem. It's a form of insanity, really. If we realize who we are, that we're an actor portraying King Lear, it's not a problem. And we can embody King Lear as fully as we want and even enjoy it. But we could always step back. We could leave. We could back away. We could say, hey, I need a break. I'm me, and that's King Lear. You don't even have to say that. All the other actors know that. If you say, I need a break, they know that you're you and that you're going to stop being King Lear for a minute. In life, most people are convinced that who they are is the role that they're playing. The role is, I call it the self, but you could write it down on a sheet of paper. So if I said to you, tell me about yourself, and I want you to write it down, here's a sheet of paper. Tell me about yourself. Write it down. You could do that. My name is such and such. I'm from this town. These are my hopes, my dreams, my desires, everything. You could write all that down. Okay, that's content of the self, and it can be described just like a character in a play. Okay, that's not who you are. That's part of your embodiment, you could say. So your pure awareness embodying this character. And the character isn't real, and yet we know what it is. Like, we all know who King Lear is. Anyone who is familiar with Shakespeare knows who King Lear is, and he has certain qualities, certain inclinations. If you were playing King Lear, if you knew the character really well, you could improvise and, well, what would King Lear do? Well, this is the kind of person he is. So we're basically living that way where we think we're the character. And really, the term I would use is we believe we're the character. So belief is a certain kind of attachment where we're mentally convinced of something. If you believe you're the character, if you believe that the self is who you are, again, the self being what you can write down in a piece of paper, and the person being that same character that's written in the script that has a body and sensations and emotions and so on. If you believe that's who you are, that that's fundamentally who you are, then it's a mental illness, basically. It's just that psychologists believe that's who they are. Doctors believe that's who they are for the most part. That's my experience anyway. I don't know how scientific that is, but generally speaking, your average psychologist is going to believe that the fictional person that I'm describing is who you are in your essence. Now, maybe they have a sense of spirituality and a sense that there is something about us that's beyond that. That's possible. But strictly speaking, psychologists are licensed, and they're licensed by these bodies that have standards, and that's important. And yet, the official licensing bodies and agencies and so on in the government are not going to say you're a field of awareness. So, ego is a tendency to attach to that fictional character that we presume ourselves to be, that I would call the self or the person. We say my body, what we mean is the scripted character has this body. That's the idea, that's the hallucination. It would be like, well, this is King Lear's body. Well, not really. Ego is a tendency to attach to a false sense of self, the fictional character that we think we are. And there are degrees of it. So it's like a spectrum disorder where you could have really strong attachment and really strong belief, deep investment in that character. And then you could have degrees of that all the way to maybe a very mild, relatively speaking, a mild form of attachment to that character. The thing is, if you were in a play and you actually believed that you were King Lear, even a very small degree of belief that that's the case would be a big problem. And people would be concerned about you if you believed even a little bit. It's like, well, I'm King Lear, but I'm not really attached to it. Well, you're not King Lear. So now, if you really believed you're King Lear, you might start trying to order people around and maybe behead them or crazy things like that. Maybe you would be institutionalized over that. If you only had a mild degree of it, that would still be a concern, and they'd probably send you to a psychiatrist. The thing is, the way the world is currently, most people believe that that's who they are. So ego is pervasive, extremely common. And that's why spiritual awakening is somewhat rare, because there's such a universal sense of hypnotism. It's like a hypnotic suggestion, a belief that we have. Like someone hypnotizes us into believing that we're King Lear, and then we act like that and we believe it. That's a problem. So our true nature is pure consciousness, and consciousness illuminates the mind and the body. So King Lear wouldn't even exist. The fiction of King Lear would not exist without the light of awareness. Now, consciousness and awareness have slightly different connotations, but I'm using it interchangeably here. So if you're aware of the character of King Lear, let's look at it this way. If you're aware of yourself, your character, if you will, your person, your mind, your body, but more importantly, the scripted character that you presume yourself to be, you're aware of it. It's not aware of you. It's arising within you. So as awareness, it's like you're illuminating it and it's being presented to you. The way to wake up is to embody that awareness. It's to be aware. In a sense, meditation is being who you are. It's practicing a mode of awareness that doesn't judge. So by that, I mean pure awareness. I use this mudra sometimes. It's like an open hand. It's not a grasping hand. It doesn't attach. It doesn't try to modify or change or describe exactly. All it does is show you what's there. So just like a light would show you the contents of your room, it would illuminate it. If you have adequate illumination, you could see your way around, you could function. If the character of King Lear comes up into my mind, I know a little bit about the play, I know a bit about that scripted character. I'm aware of him, if you will. Not that he really has gender, but he's written that way. See, there really isn't a King Lear. That's the thing. If I start talking about him, it's like, wait a second, you realize he doesn't exist, right? It's a description. It's like an aggregation of qualities that are purely conceptual and that I could act out. I'm aware of him. He's not aware of me. To think that King Lear is aware of me is ridiculous. In a similar way, I'm aware of the self, James, the self. I have a story, and I use the term I in a social way because if you walk around saying I am pure awareness to people, they'll think you're crazy. That's the way the world is. So you refer to yourself almost like you're acting in a play. It's just if you're awake, you know that that's not who you really are. You're the awareness that's illuminating that fictional character. And it's not a problem because the fictional character wants to hold itself together. See, there's no one there. There's no there. There's no substance. It's a phantom. And there's an intuition at the root of us where we know that we're a fraud when we do that. So ego, that tendency to attach to that character, is fraudulent. And deep in there somewhere, there's this awareness, this understanding that we suppress because it's socially unacceptable to be truly be who you are. There's an intuition that it's not real or that it's fraudulent. And so we suppress that and we become afraid. And I'm using this, we hold it together through tension, fear, worry, anxiety. What's going to happen to me when we're really talking about this character? When you wake up, you realize that the awareness that you are, the pure awareness, embodies this character in a sense, body, mind, emotions. And it's a relaxed connection that holds that together. And if you're a seasoned actor, you could really inhabit your character. You could really be that character. But the character isn't who you are. I don't know if you can hear the subtle distinction there. You could be this character. The being is in you, in your awareness. You're being awareness. You're inhabiting the character, but the character isn't you. In a similar way, the scripted false self isn't who you are. So ego is an attachment to that fictional character, and it has all kinds of implications. First of all, it can be threatened. There's a sense of threat that goes with it. So if I'm attached to that fictional self, it's precarious. What's going to happen to me? Me. What's going to happen to King Lear? I don't know. What's in the next act? I don't know. The awareness that we are is eternal. and it's eternal right now. You can access it right now. And it isn't born, it doesn't die, and it is our essence. It's freely available. So there's not a sense of time in it. There literally is no time in it. It's a timeless dimension. So the idea of, well, what's going to happen to awareness? Well, it's going to be aware, and that's its nature. It's not that through time it somehow exists, it's that it is the source of all of that. And it is always now. And it illuminates what's put in front of it. So to live an illumined life is basically to be conscious, to be aware, to practice. And the way to illuminate your mind, and again, the mind isn't who you are, it's something that you're illuminating. The light that's illuminating my body right now is not my body. It's revealing it. It's just showing it to me. In a similar way, your mind, when you pay attention to it with non-judgmental awareness, it's in a sense illumined. And the tendency is to want to judge. And what that is the mind coming in the back door. Because the mind judges. The mind, it compares, it analyzes. Nothing wrong with that. That's its nature. And basically, it's clinging to itself. So the self is created by the mind judging itself. One of the root ideas is at the root of this false sense of self. So at the root of ego is a sense of inadequacy. I'm not enough. And again, the I refers to ego. It refers to something that's false, really something that's not there. It would be like, again, you imagine that you're King Lear. And as King Lear, he thinks something is afoot, something's amiss. I don't know. He talks. How does King Lear talk? I don't know. Something is amiss in the kingdom. And of course there is, because it's false. It's not real. It's the attachment to it that's the problem. Again, if you just freely embodied King Lear as an actor, it's fine. It's actually a lot of fun. And you could, in a sense, pick the character up and put it down. You could be King Lear and then not be. And it's beautiful. It's actually, it's creative. It's artistic. You're in a sense illuminating this character to share with an audience. The problem with the ego is the character is presented to us, and then we think, oh, that's who I am. I better act like that character. The character is made of, to a large degree, of conditioned statements made by our caregivers and authority figures that we've heard our whole lives as we're growing up. You're this, you're that. And because they probably weren't a liberated being, they have that sense of inadequacy too. They're living that script, their particular script. And out of that script, you're like, well, I'm a scripted character, so are you. And I'm the authority, and I'm going to tell you who you are and how you are. And it obstructs love. Love would be awareness of our true nature, of this stillness of consciousness of our true nature, of who we actually are. And it's beautiful when we share it. If I see someone and I witness their essence, the being that I am sees the being that you are. There's a recognition of it, but at the same time, there's a profound appreciation of that. And there's no time in it. And it's deeply satisfying, and it's healing, it's supportive, it's kind. So we learn to embody love, and it's non-judgmental. So unconditional love would be that connection that I'm describing that's free of judgment. Usually gets corrupted by our fear. The ego ruins everything. It's terrible. It's like someone brings out this pristine birthday cake and everyone's happy, and the ego is the one that sticks a turd in it and says, all of you need to die right now. It sounds terrible. I mean, it is. It's terrible. It's at the root of dictatorship. And we see that writ large and small, people telling other people what to do. I'm important. you're beneath me. Again, ego compares, the mind judges, it compares, it tries to puff itself up, it tries to push everyone else down. We all know what that is, right? That someone who's bossy or someone who's vainglorious, they're full of themselves. There's nothing there. They're puffing themselves up because it's empty and they're scared. That's all it is. It's just that it's dangerous because they'll often commit acts of violence to prove it. And it doesn't work and it makes everyone miserable.